Bula, everybody. Kesa here. My name is J.K. Majaz, and today we're going to be talking about the house. So this is actually my first review I've ever done, and I hope this goes well. So there are many movies called The House, but I'm talking about the Netflix special, like the Netflix special that's stop motion animated, and I'll show you. So as you can see, I bought up a poster of the movie, and as you can see, they have three different stories, but they all connected throughout the house. Like the thing that connects them together is the house. Like they have different characters, which are humans, cats, and rats. But I really like that idea a lot. I think that was a good idea to do. So what I'll do now is that I would break down the movie into three pieces, which are the three stories, and talk about them in their own way, and point out the details I liked, and at at the end, when I do that, at the end I'll talk about the common themes that they all have and see if there's like a greater narrative to all three of them they have in common. So the first story is about, a family of four. I'm pretty sure it's like set in the 90th or 20th century, like somewhere around the Victorian era. I'm not good with history. Don't quote me on it. But they're in poverty and they have to live in a very small house. I would say that the main character in this story is Mabel, the small girl who is 9, and she has a sister named Isabel, so she kind of has to look after her as well. And I like the father and the mother as well. The mother's really nice, as she's able to make her own stuff, such as the curtains or the children's clothing, and the father not so much because she's trying very hard to provide for the family, and that's kind of really sad. And like it's very hard for me to understand what's happening, but I'm pretty sure that in that part of the movie, their family members who are like in a middle class or rich class, middle or upper class status, like come to visit them. They're wearing top hats, they're wearing their clothes, they're wearing shawls. They're wearing very special clothing, and they kind of like make fun of Mabel's family, and that's not really nice. And I can understand. Well, I kind of side with both views because one of the people say that, oh, the father shouldn't be in this situation because he had very good education. He he's actually smart, and for some reason he's in a state of poverty and debt. And I kind of really got pissed off when one of the people said, "Oh, you're just like your father, Raymond." That's the name of the dad, Raymond. And that was kind of, I hate people when they do that. Like, in my opinion, a person is a person. Sure, they may be related by blood to their mother or father, but they are their own person, nobody else. And I can see where this leads to. So, the father is trying everything he can. He goes in the middle of the night because he's drunk, and he's very vulnerable. And in the middle of the woods, he's pissing in the woods. He goes and meets like a person, who it's like a carriage in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night. He goes there. He has a chat with the guy, and he comes back, and he's like, "Hey, can we get the wine? Can we get the food, please? It's time to celebrate." And in the morning, everything is good. Like everyone gets to pack up their things. They're actually getting their uh stuff ready, and I'm pretty sure, like, the guy said, "Oh, it's a client that was associated with my father, so he, as a gift, he's giving us a house, a better house, instead of living in this little one." So in my opinion, it's that man is either a representation of, greed or obsession, which is a very important part of the story. And you know um greed is like when you want more of something. Oh, I want this because it's better than what I have. That's kind of what it goes into, because the guy had everything he wanted. He had a good family. He had everything. He had a decent family, a house, very good family, and nothing was wrong with it. Like, they were okay. They had food, they had wine, they had a house, not a house, a home, and the children were okay that way. But the moment when somebody nitpicks on their house, they kind of feel sad about it, which is not okay. So, they move on. And I like how in the beginning, like, the father, like, goes, like, actually carries the carriage with the three of them, like, to the house, so that, oh, come on, kids, let's get a carriage, let's get a stuff. And then the person who owns the house is like, oh, you don't need to bring all that stuff. And that's kind of like I think that's a representation on how like, when you move up, you have to follow specific orders and specific standards. You can't really be yourself. Like, when you're a celebrity or a person of high status, or you earn it or you're given it, you don't have any time to breathe. You can't be yourself, you can't breathe. Like, if you try, like, putting your culture or your behavior in something that's way different from you, people are gonna, like, ostracize you for that. So it's like, oh, you petty, low standing class can't live here, even though it is special to you. It's not special to us. And oh, we will teach you how to live like this, and you will learn how to enjoy stuff the way we do. That's how I got from it. So, they bur- they shift everything down to the basement. I also like how, they dinner. It's okay. I'm gonna move past this. It's not important, but I'm gonna move to the part where, Isabel and Mabel. They're like in the basement. It's like, hey, this is all of our stuff. Like, why is it here? Like, and the thing is, I kind of get what it means. Like, a home, it can be anywhere as long as you enjoy living in it. A house can be as big as you want it, as beautiful as you want it, but it's up to you if you want it to be a home. And, you know, I like the foreshadowing as well, like how, hey, I can't get this fireplace started, and oh, I like this outfit. It looks very beautiful. They turn into a chair and a chair and uh, curtains, because they they put everything in they wanted. And even though it is dangerous for them, they literally want to be a part of the house. Like, they sacrifice, I mean, they wanted so much that they were willing to be a part of the house. And I think the fireplace was like a metaphor for them burning everything that made it a home, like their books, their old furniture, the dollhouse. I'll get to that to a second. Like, they're burning everything that made their house a home. They just got rid of everything that made them them. And then, oh, this is like such petty. We shouldn't, like, even though that was what they made a home, everything that made it a home is just burnt away. It's just empty now. It's a house. It's a husk. And I liked how the dollhouse was like foreshadowing as well. Like, when he burnt the house, the dollhouse, the house also burnt with it. It could be like a representation of an idea of a home. They are burning their idea of a home, and too actually and that too actually burnt their house down. And sure, even though they were blinded, sure, and like their parents, like they were in the middle of everything. Like, oh, can we live in this life of luxury, like in this big house, but still keep it a home? Because they became furniture, but then, hey, Mabel, please look after Isabel. She's your family. And then, Mabel does like a Rapunzel stunt, and then, she gets away from the house. So it's either like the parents like wanting to keep their material wants, but also, you know, also pushing their two children away from them so that they don't get to be like them. I think that's really important. So for the second part of the story, I thought that was cool. The representation of pests such as rats and bugs. I thought that was really cool. Because following from the first story, like the house is burnt down, but then this rat guy he was able to like furnish it up a bit. Like the house is returned to its former glory, but it's more modernized, and of course there are bugs hiding around everywhere. So that's kind of like the main problem that the house has, like infestations and exploitations. Like exploitations that come later, but with the infestation part, it's like a metaphor for how a dream or project can be exposed too quickly, or like half dead or half finished. And when you bring that up to the world, people are gonna poke at it, they're gonna like burn it down, physically and mentally. I mean, they're like both aspects of it, physical and mentally. They're gonna destroy it, they're gonna like wear it off and tear it off. Like in like a lot of things, like all things need to come to an end. And think of it as like a cancer. Anything that lives for too long is usually a bad thing, even if it's good, it still has to die off so that another form of it can take its place. So in a way, the house is like a cancer basically. It takes all of the energy from the person who has it and basically kills them from the inside. Think of the house as this entity or a cancer cell in the story. So the rat guy, he basically looks after the house. He basically tries to kill all of the bugs, but more bugs come and swarm the entire place. And then the part when people come in, they kind of trash the place up as well and make it worse. So yeah, like pe- no matter how hard you worked on something, people will there will be a point where people won't care about it. Like, oh, this is a 5,000 word essay on why I should do this, and then people are like, nah, I don't really care. Like, some people don't really care about your feelings, even though because they can't understand what you're wanting about this. And the two couple, like the two fat mice people, the couple, I thought that was interesting as well because that's a representation on how vulnerable people can be. It's like Squid Game basically. Like this rat guy, he comes to a point where he's desperate to get anything, like desperate to sell the house and get money. And then these two come along, and what happens is that they'll buy the house for anything. Like they like the house no matter how awful, how broken up it is. So for people, it's kind of like how we draw really bad, we make really crappy stuff when we're young. It's like our parents like, oh, it's nice, a son or daughter or non-binary person or gender fluid person. You get my point, right? Like they try to act nice, and they try to encourage you to get better and better. But for people who are like, I like the house regardless of what you did, they're trying to exploit you. Like if they're willing to buy a crap house, then that would mean that they're willing to exploit you and they're willing to see you crumble. And ironically, the thing that gave the rat guy, a purpose is what actually is killing him from the inside. He wanted he wanted people to stay in the house, occupants, but then those two occupants are actually what caused a problem for him. Like, he actually wants to force them out of the house, because they're not doing anything and they're just living there, even though that's what the point of it is. And he comes to the hospital. He basically blacks out from all of the pesticide stuff, and he comes back. And when he comes back, he's like, "Oh, welcome to your house." Like, the two fat rat people invite the family and the rat guy for the hospital, and it's like, "Oh, welcome to your house." Like, instead of the rat guy trying to give the house to people, it actually becomes his. It kind of makes sense because from the very beginning, he basically lived in the basement. Like, he was basically living in the heart of the walls, in the heart of the house, basically. And then what was kind of sad about it is that you know the rat people's family, it kind of like broke everything up. The house, the furniture, they were knowing on the cables. They basically broke everything up, and the rat guy, basically, who tried looking after the house, he surrenders to his lowest instincts, and he basically acts like an animal and like goes digs a hole which is inside the oven and it crawls through it. And I'm pretty sure that's like a representation on what happens when your hopes and dreams are crushed. Like, if the is think of it as like an organ. If your hopes and dreams are pulverized, you will get out of control, right? Like, you would act crazy. Like, you'll surrender to your lowest instincts, and you're not able to move on. Like, and it's yeah. I'll go to the third movie now. Like, now the third story, like the last story of the movie, I like the most because, in my opinion, it had the most meaning, and it had a happy ending compared to the other psychological horror stuff or black comedy. So, it's about a cat. Now, if you've now you see a similarity between the second one and the first one. A cat who is obsessed with a house and wants to bring it to its full potential. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought it did. And then, she tried, like, again, it's like a cancer cell, basically. Like, even if you try feeding it as much energy as it can, it's not good for you. It actually grows, sure, it may grow in size and it may look different, it may look prettier, but it's just gonna be a husk that'll be a waste of your time and energy. Because, there's a part where in the beginning she tries posting up wallpaper, and that crumbles down. It pulls down no matter how many times she glues it on. It's like, oh, I put in so much effort in it. Why is it not paying it off? Why isn't it paying it off? Well, sometimes when you obsess about something, there's a difference between obsession and a dedication. An obsession is when you pay attention to something an unhealthy amount and you're not able to handle it properly. Dedication is something you pay attention to in a healthy manner and actually do something productive about it. Because the wallpaper, it basically falls down and she can't really do anything about it. And the house, it's really destroyed. The time it's set is like, I don't know, post-apocalyptic, because England is basically sunk. It's basically sunk. All of the wires, it's just on under the water, and like the house is the only standing structure, like against the water which is surrounded it by. Like, there, she has two clients, which is a black cat named Elias and a shaman type cat, which is like, I forgot the name, but those two are very important in that story. So the thing is, think think of her as like that Russian guy from Spider-Man. She's like, rent, pay rent, Pay the rent now. But the thing is, I like how like the two cats can't really pay anything as much because you know they aren't really proper clients. They're like hermits basically. Like they can only pay her with fish and crystals. And if this was an 18 plus movie, they would pay her with something else. But I'm not gonna delve into that. But yeah, they can't really pay her properly. Only fish and crystals. And then they're like, "Oh, why are you so serious? Don't Can you please stop obsessing over the house? It's not good for you." And like she's trying to like help everybody and bring more clients in. It's like a husband hotel thing where the house is under renovation. There aren't that many clients, and she's like trying to help people like by bringing them in. And then basically in the morning, the Shamini cat's boyfriend named Cosmos. I like the character. He's a down to earth character as well. He's like, even though I am free as the wind, I actually have a lot of skills and services I can provide, which I think was cool. So, so like in the next day when Cosmos is there, like he basically like gets pulls out some of the planks from the boards and like gives it to Elias. Now what they're building is a boat to sail across the sea, basically. It's like, and the landlady's like, wait, what? You're leaving? But this is the only place which is basically structurally sound, or you know, basically there and structurally sound, and put properly instead of everything else that's uncertain. And the thing is, like, yeah, the thing is, I don't want. I made up my mind. I don't want to live here. It's too toxic for me, and I want to move out. So basically, he moves out, and then the next day, like, Cosmos the cat, the Shamini boyfriend, basically builds like the landlady something. It's like, oh, use this lever if for an emergency only. I know you can do it. And basically, this mist comes in, which kind of like gives her a high. Like everybody's happy, everybody's cheering. And, like the shaman lady's like, don't be scared if this when you breathe in the mist. Basically, she does, and like she has visions of herself, like trying to hang out with her friends, like the two clients, but all she can see is herself being alone. And then after the visions, like being tripping balls, like she tries, please, I've been missing all of this. I can't believe I've been missing all of this, and I didn't have the time to say goodbye. And that's a good idea because that's a good topic because if you spend all of your time on one thing and you don't have any time for the things you like your friends, your family, some schoolwork maybe, like focusing on one thing and just one thing alone is not a good thing. You have to it's life is a balancing act, You need like a fraction of your family, a fraction of your friends, a fraction of your faith, a fraction of everything to keep everything in balance. Like it's like food. If you eat too much of one thing, it's gonna be bad for your entire life or your entire health. It's the same as one thing. Because she could have got gotten the time. She could have had the. She should have like. She could have had the time to like know what they were doing. Like, oh, this cat lady is a very nice person. Elias is a nice person. I could have hung out with them. And the shaman couple, they're like out on a boat, and they're like, "You can do it, cat lady. You can do it." Like she's in this midway point where she wants to go, but but she wants to stay with the house. It's like, oh no, what should I do? What should I do? Which I thought, was really nice. Like she pulls on the lever, and the house basically becomes a ship, and basically she like gets over her obsession over the house, and I'm happy that that happens because out of the three stories, only one, which is the end, where the character actually gets over the obsession, and she pilots a house like a ship, and basically she moves along with her friends, and that was a very nice note to end on. And also, I like how they used water as like the main obstacle or threat in the show, in that part of the movie, because cats hate water, but metaphorically, an ocean of or a body of water is like the unknown, like both the Shamini people and Elias, they're moving out of the house, but they don't know what's up ahead, and that's better than anything else than being put in this box you know where that's your only life. Like, what's better, being put in this box, a small box where that's your entire life, or being put in a vast land what where everything is mysterious and adventurous? Like, the thing is, if it's a mystery, you'll never know unless you try if it's safe or not. And her obsession was like the only thing she knew. That was her world. That was her view on the world. The house was basically her entire world to her. And her like being confronted by people like, oh, please move out of the house. It's very toxic for you. It's basically like it's basically threatening her view on the world, which is nice because if you have a very narrow worldview, you're not gonna see things. You're gonna be very biased, and you're gonna be very toxic to people. Also, like the symbology of the house becoming a submarine or a ship basically. Like, sure, she got over her obsession of the house, and she's going out into the unknown where she can do anything she wants. But like a remnant or a piece of her obsession is still there. Like, it's like with most addictions, like it won't instantly go away, and even though the addiction goes away from you, a piece of it will still be in you. Like, and I hope that like I feel like that's an idea of like it breaking away. So what I thought that each three stories had in common is that the idea of obsession, like the father's obsession of being perfect to everybody or being an equal to everybody, because he had an obsession of being a strong and independent person with a very beautiful house, and that obsession actually killed him. And the obsession that the red guy had, his obsession was to bring the house to was to sell the house and get money. But that obsession led him to stay in the house as an animal. As in the beginning, he tried getting rid of the bugs. He tried getting rid of the bugs, but in the end, he became a pest. He became a pest by himself, and so did the people he auctioned the house to. Um, in the third one, however, as I said previously, the cat lady's idea was, you know, the house. Her obsession was, of the house, of her bringing the house to its full potential. And ironically, at the end, it is fulfilling its full potential, basically, because sure, it may not be beautiful or a little bit practical, but at the end, without the help of his friends, without the help of her friends, like she wouldn't be able to do this all by herself. She wouldn't be able to follow them into the ocean. The second aspect I want to talk about is how how each of the main characters were able to get how each of the main characters were like pushing people aside. So for the example, um I would say that the father from the first story was, pushing away her her daughter, his daughter, and his two daughters, and the wife is teaming up with the husband in order to, you know live a proper life, a fancy life. Basically, he basically like ignored both of his daughters like for a long time, and then what happened to him is that it killed him, and he could have potentially killed his daughters. He basically was the reason why his family would have died. Think about it. Sure, that both of them didn't burn to death, but they're two girls, one 9-year-old and a baby, out in the middle of the the woods. Do you think they're able to handle themselves? I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure they would have died by then. Basically, the father pushed away his two daughters like when it mattered the most. The second one, I'm pretty sure that the mouse was gay. Like he had a boyfriend who was his. He had an he had like a relationship with his dentist, and from what I know, he pushed like he was talking too much, or he was pushing people away, like when he needed it the most. Like he wasn't able to communicate with people properly because he was talking too much. Like he was using the doctor as like his dentist as like an emotional support thing, even though that was like, you know kind of going into personal territory. And when like he needed a house to be sold, he sold it to the wrong people, which were the mouse people. And that kind of like what set the whole thing in motion. Like the idea of pushing people which are close to you, but bringing in people which are bad. Yeah, so basically I want to go back to the first story. Like he pushed away his daughters, but then he roped in, some very awful people, which potentially got all of them killed. And for the second one, he he pushed away all of the people which were good candidates, but then he roped in people, those two fat mouse people, who basically destroyed his dream and the entire house. And he was talking too much to, his boyfriend, which kind of like got him arrested to begin with. And it's very present in like the third one as well, because you know the cat lady didn't know what to push away and what to pull in. She pushed away all of the people who cared for her, but roped herself in with the house because she thought that that was the only important thing. But the thing is, without her friends, she wouldn't have been able to do any of this. Like, her friends really cared for her. Like, Elias drew pictures of her, not in an OnlyFans style, basically in a nice way. Basically, like the shaman people actually gave really nice advice to her as well, and also the third idea now is how like fire, earth, and water are actually brought into the stories and how they used as obstacles. So I like how fire is roped in with the first story because they're humans, and modernization and technological progress is actually what makes us less human, even though it's actually better for our world. And because fire is what actually killed everybody in the end, but fire is the discovery of is was the first thing we discovered as humans. And in the house, it had all of the marvelous things, back in the 18th century, which is really nice. Like, they had gas lamps which could be turned on and off. That was a nice invention. They had, a decent sewing machine. That was a nice invention. Like all of these material inventions that were modern, that's kind of what roped in. That's like kind of what, brought the family to a disaster. And, fire being something that we discovered, that's kind of basically modernization and technological advances is kind of like what brought the girls to disaster. For Earth, it is kind of like For Earth, it's kind of like how in the second story, how something can be refined, but it can also be dirty to begin with. Like Earth is like a very nice. It's a very interesting material. When it's dirty, it can support anything, and I mean anything. Like with, it can support all life, like pests, bugs, us, plants. It can basically support all of that. But you know, when it's when it's like not looked into properly, like when you refine the earth, you get metal. And we think that metal is more important, but both sides are just as important. Rats and pests are able to fester into the ones that are into something that is dirty, like normal earth. And the idea of him standing his ground, clearly he did not. And that is kind of what stopped, that is like kind of what prevented him from moving on. If you don't stand your ground and you don't know when to say no, then a lot of bad things will happen to you. He should have said no, like, hey, can you get out of the house? I mean, it was not his fault. Like, they seemed like nice people in the beginning, the red couple. But as time went on and on, like, he should have moved. He knew the red flags and he had to move them out. In the third one, it was kind of nice because it played with the idea of water and how change. Think of Avatar: The Last Airbender and how they portray the elements. Let's talk about change, basically. Water can be in any state, form, or can be in almost any form, basically. Basically, what is about change? Like, think of the cat lady as ice and her idea. Like, she cannot move at all, and at that state, if she tries to move, she'll break down. Now, if you melt the ice, it'll be easier to move. So basically, it's about her melting down and seeing the flaws in whatever she's doing and moving on. Basically, yeah, this video is too long, and tell me what you thought about the review. Thank you.